A young man is belittled by his girlfriend's wealthy father, who mocks his financial status and predicts he'll never amount to anything. Instead of arguing, the man silently walks away, determined to prove him wrong. He uses the insult as fuel to transform his life, focusing on strategic investments and building a successful property portfolio. As he rises, his former tormentors begin to experience financial and personal setbacks. The story unfolds as the man navigates their attempts to re-enter his life, grappling with the complexities of forgiveness and the quiet satisfaction of achieving success on his own terms. The narrative centers on the man's journey from being underestimated to becoming a powerful figure, all while maintaining his integrity and redefining what true success means. My girlfriend's dad laughed, "You're a nobody, too broke to ever own a house." My girlfriend laughed with him. I just nodded and walked away. Years later, I owned 3 houses while she's stuck in a cramped apartment, and her dad lost everything. Now they both call and text me 100 times a day. I still remember the exact moment I decided to change my life. It wasn't when Nathan, my girlfriend's dad, called me a nobody. It wasn't even when Joyce laughed along with him. It was the tiny, almost imperceptible nod he gave her afterward, like they shared some private joke at my expense. That small gesture told me everything I needed to know about my future with their family. This happened 3 years ago. I was 25, dating Joyce for 2 years, and thought I was on track for the whole American dream package. I had a stable job that paid decent money, but I wasn't exactly rolling in cash. Still, I was proud of what I'd achieved on my own, coming from a middle-class family with no connections or inheritance. Nathan, on the other hand, came from old money and never let anyone forget it. He owned multiple properties around town and had this way of making every conversation about his latest acquisition or investment. At first, I tried to learn from him, genuinely interested in his success, but soon I realized he wasn't sharing wisdom, he was flaunting his superiority. That fateful dinner started like any other Sunday family meal at their house. Lauren, Joyce's mom, had prepared her signature roast, and everyone was discussing their week. Nathan was going on about his newest property development when he turned to me. "So, Adam, still at the same company, making $65K a year?" he asked. I nodded, taking a sip of water. "Yeah, but I'm up for a promotion soon." He chuckled, cutting into his meat. "You know what I made when I was your age? Triple that, and that was 30 years ago." I forced a smile. "Different times." "No, son," he said, shaking his head. "Different ambitions, different capabilities." He pointed his fork at me. "You know why most young people can't afford houses nowadays? They lack vision. They waste money on avocado toast and subscriptions instead of building real wealth." I started to respond about the housing market changes, but he cut me off. "Take Joyce here. She's got prospects, already making moves in her career. But you," he shook his head, "you're comfortable. Comfortable means stagnant. At this rate, you'll never own property in this city. You're a nobody, and nobody's rent forever." That's when I heard it. Joyce's laugh. Not her genuine laugh that I loved, but this high-pitched, artificial sound she used when trying to please her father. She actually reached over and patted my hand, like I was some charity case she was taking care of. "Dad's just trying to motivate you, honey," she said, that condescending smile still on her face. I looked around the table. Lauren was suddenly very interested in her wine glass. The air felt thick, heavy with unspoken judgments. And that's when Nathan gave Joyce that tiny nod, that subtle, "we're better than him," acknowledgement that broke something in me. I didn't make a scene, didn't defend myself. I just stood up, thanked Lauren for dinner, and walked out. Joyce followed me to the door, confused by my overreaction. She actually said, "You know how Dad is. Just laugh it off." But I was done laughing. Done being the joke. I drove straight to my best friend, Douglas's place. Douglas worked in finance and had been trying to get me interested in investment strategies for years. I'd always played it safe with my money, but that night something changed. We stayed up until 3 a.m., planning, looking at market trends, property values, potential opportunities. My sister, Christina, joined us around midnight, bringing coffee and her business expertise. By sunrise, I had a solid 5-year plan. The next day, I broke up with Joyce. She was shocked, kept saying we could work through this, that I was being too sensitive. But when I mentioned her laugh at dinner, she got defensive. What? I can't laugh at a joke now. No, I said, you can't laugh at me anymore. That was 3 years ago. I just finished setting up my property management dashboard for my latest acquisition, and a familiar name popped up in my notifications. Nathan's trying to connect on LinkedIn again, 4th time this month. Guess he finally realized that nobodies can become somebodies, and sometimes they become exactly who they needed to be all along. Update. First, thank you all for the overwhelming support on my last post. I didn't expect it to blow up like that. A lot has happened, and I've been hesitant to post an update because I wanted to make sure everything was concrete before sharing. Remember how I mentioned Nathan trying to connect on LinkedIn? Well, that was just the beginning. Last week, I got a text from an unknown number. Adam, it's Nathan. We should talk about some opportunities. I think we got off on the wrong foot. I had to laugh. 3 years ago, I was a nobody. Now he wants to talk about opportunities. But let me back up. The last 2 years have been intense. That 5-year plan I made with Douglas turned into a 2-year sprint when the market took an unexpected turn. I'd been saving aggressively, living in a tiny studio apartment, and putting every spare dollar into my investment fund. Douglas kept telling me to slow down, but something in me just wouldn't quit. My first property was a small fixer-upper in an up-and-coming neighborhood. Nothing fancy, but it was mine. I spent weekends fixing it up, learning from YouTube videos, and calling in favors from friends who knew their way around tools. Christina, my sister, turned out to be surprisingly good at interior design on a budget. Then the market dipped. While everyone else panicked, I saw an opportunity. I had been tracking this particular property for months, a duplex that had been sitting empty. The owner was overextended and needed to sell fast. I managed to secure a loan, thanks to Douglas for helping me build my credit, and bought my second property for 20% below market value. That's when I started hearing whispers about Nathan. His latest development project wasn't going well, contractors walking off the job, permits delayed, that sort of thing. I tried not to pay attention, but in a small city, news travels fast. Then came the weird part. Joyce showed up at my office one day, unannounced. Adam, she said, fidgeting with her purse strap. You look good. I kept it professional. Thanks. What can I help you with? She spent 10 minutes making small talk before finally getting to the point. Dad's working on this amazing development project. Really exclusive, ground floor opportunity. We thought, maybe you'd be interested in investing. The irony wasn't lost on me. Why would nobody like me be interested in your dad now? She flinched. That was years ago. People change. Dads change. He really respects what you've built. What I built, without his help or approval, I said. Please tell your dad I'm not interested. She tried a different angle. Adam, we had something real. Maybe this could be a fresh start for us, too. That's when I realized she hadn't changed at all. Still trying to please her dad, still seeing me as a means to an end. No, Joyce, we didn't have something real. We had something convenient that fell apart the moment it was tested. Please don't come to my office again. A month later, I closed on my third property, a small commercial space in the downtown area that nobody wanted because it needed major renovations. But I saw its potential. While everyone else was chasing the next big development, I was quietly building my portfolio with properties I could manage myself. Douglas thinks I'm working too hard. Maybe he's right, but every time I get a new property ready for tenants, I feel this quiet satisfaction that no amount of money can buy. It's not about proving Nathan wrong anymore, it's about proving myself right. Last night, I got another text from Nathan. Adam, I know we have our differences, but I have a proposition that could benefit us both. Serious money involved. Call me. I showed the text to Christina over dinner. She just shook her head and said, funny how people only remember your number when they need something. The texts kept coming, 3 more today, each one more urgent than the last. Something's definitely wrong in Nathan's world, and he thinks I'm his solution. But here's the thing. I don't need to be anyone's solution anymore. My properties are doing well, my tenants are happy, and I'm building something sustainable. No quick fixes, no shortcuts, just steady growth. This morning, I saw Joyce at the local coffee shop. She was arguing with someone on the phone about rent payments. Our eyes met briefly, and for a moment, I saw something like regret flash across her face. She quickly looked away and hurried out. I should feel vindicated. Instead, I just feel peaceful. The best revenge isn't winning. It's realizing you were playing a completely different game all along. But these texts from Nathan are getting more frequent, and I have a feeling this story isn't over yet. Something big is coming, and for once, I'm not the one who needs to worry about it. Update 2. I wasn't planning to write another update so soon, but things have escalated quickly. Remember those desperate texts from Nathan? Well, now I know why. It started with a news article in our local paper. Prominent local developer faces multiple lawsuits. I didn't need to read the headline twice to know who it was about. Nathan's latest development project, the one he wanted me to invest in, had collapsed spectacularly. Unfinished buildings, angry investors, and a trail of bounced checks. But that's not why I'm writing this update. Last Saturday, I was having breakfast at my usual spot when Lauren, Joyce's mom, walked in. I hadn't seen her since that dinner 3 years ago. She looked different, tired, older somehow. She spotted me and hesitated before approaching my table. "Adam," she said softly. "Do you have a minute?" I gestured to the empty chair across from me. She sat down, hands wrapped around her paper coffee cup like she was trying to warm them, despite it being summer. "I left Nathan," she said without preamble. "After 30 years, I just couldn't anymore." She took a shaky breath. "The money's been gone for months. He kept borrowing, trying to cover losses, making bigger and riskier deals. I found out he'd mortgaged our house without telling me. I sat there, coffee forgotten, as Lauren told me everything, how Nathan had been living on borrowed time and money for the past year, how his reputation in town was destroyed, and how Joyce had to move out of her luxury apartment and into a cramped studio because her dad could no longer subsidize her lifestyle. He keeps talking about you," Lauren said, managing a weak smile. "Say you're the one who saw it coming. That's why you got out when you did." I shook my head. "I got out because I needed to respect myself, not because I predicted any of this." She reached across the table and squeezed my hand. "I should have said something that night. I'm sorry. That conversation bothered me for days, not because I felt bad for Nathan. He made his choices, but because it made me question my own satisfaction in their downfall." Then came the texts, not from Nathan this time, but from Joyce. Screenshots of past due notices, questions about rental applications, asking if I knew of any reasonable places for rent, each message more desperate than the last. I showed them to Douglas over beers. He just shrugged and said, "Karma's a mirror, not a weapon." But it got more complicated at Christina's wedding last weekend. Joyce was there, a last-minute +1 from a mutual friend. She looked out of place in a dress that had clearly seen better days. During the reception, I overheard her in the bathroom, crying to someone on the phone about having to sell her designer bags to make rent. Later, she cornered me by the bar. "I get it now," she said, her voice slightly slurred. "What it feels like to have someone look down on you, to feel inadequate." She laughed bitterly. "Dad always said money talks. Guess it also knows how to say goodbye." I wanted to feel triumphant. Isn't this what I'd worked for, to prove them wrong? But watching Joyce stumble through the reception, trying to maintain her dignity while her world crumbled, felt hollow. The final straw came yesterday. Nathan showed up at one of my properties while I was doing routine maintenance. He looked terrible, an expensive suit gone, replaced by worn khakis and a faded polo. "Adam," he said, hands in his pockets. "I know I don't deserve any favors, but I have a deal. A guaranteed return. I just need a small investment to get things rolling again." "Like the deal you offered 3 months ago?" I asked. "The one that just made the news?" He flinched. "That was different. This is solid. I've got all the paperwork." "Stop," I said. "Just stop." He did something then that shocked me. He started to cry, not dramatic sobs, but quiet tears of a man who'd lost everything. "I don't know how to be nobody," he whispered. I stood there, paint roller in hand, watching this man who'd once seemed so powerful crumble in front of me. And I realized something. I didn't want this, any of it. I'm successful now. My properties are doing well. I'm expanding into new areas. But watching Nathan and Joyce's fall from grace hasn't brought me the satisfaction I thought it would. Douglas says I'm growing up. Christina thinks I'm too forgiving. But yesterday, I did something I never thought I would. I sat down with Nathan and helped him create a realistic budget, not as an investor or a savior, but as someone who remembers what it's like to start over. This morning, I got a text from Lauren. Thank you for showing him kindness he didn't deserve. Maybe that's the real revenge, becoming someone who doesn't need it anymore. Final update. Remember when I helped Nathan with that budget plan? Turns out that was his last attempt at manipulation. I discovered he'd been showing that budget to potential investors, dropping my name as his financial advisor to lend credibility to his latest scheme. That was the moment any remaining sympathy evaporated. Last month, I received a thick envelope from Lauren's lawyer. Inside was a detailed record of every property deal Nathan had ever made, including the fraudulent ones. Lauren had kept receipts, all of them, for 30 years. I'm not proud of staying silent, her note read, but I'm doing what's right now. I took those documents straight to Douglas. 3 hours later, we had mapped out every shell company, every misleading contract, every investor Nathan had deceived. His entire house of cards was laid bare on Douglas's dining room table. You know what's interesting? Douglas said, reviewing the papers. The building where Joyce's new studio apartment is. It's one of Nathan's hidden assets. He's collecting her rent through a shell company while claiming bankruptcy. I sat back, letting that sink in. He was still scamming his own daughter. The next morning, I made 3 calls. To my lawyer, to the state investigator's office, and to the highest producing real estate agency in town. By evening, I'd submitted an offer to buy the entire portfolio of distressed properties Nathan was quietly controlling through his shell companies, including Joyce's building. The price? Pennies on the dollar, given the legal cloud hanging over them. Nathan showed up at my office the next day, face red. You can't do this. Those properties aren't even officially for sale. I didn't look up from my computer. Actually, they are. Your creditors are quite motivated after receiving copies of those documents. Interesting reading material. You're destroying my last chance to fix things, he shouted. Like you tried to destroy me? I finally met his eyes. The difference is I'm doing everything legally. Just good business, right? He deflated, slumping against the wall. What do you want? I want you to disappear. Leave town. Never contact me again. And sign these papers transferring all property rights cleanly and legally. And if I don't? He asked, defeated. I pulled out another folder. Then these documents go to every investor you've ever worked with, every bank you've borrowed from, and every law enforcement agency in the state. He signed an hour later. Joyce burst into my office. How could you? That's my home. Your home? I raised an eyebrow. You mean the apartment your dad's been collecting rent on while claiming poverty? While you sold your designer bags to make payments? Some father. She went pale. What are you talking about? I showed her the paperwork, watched as she read through it, her hands shaking. When she looked up, something had changed in her eyes. What happens now? She whispered. Now you have a choice. You can keep renting from me transparently and legally, or you can move out. Your father's hidden assets are being liquidated to repay his investors. He's leaving town. Just like that. Just like that, she left without another word. Later that night, Lauren sent a text. Thank you for ending this. Now we can all move forward. 2 days ago, I finalized the purchase of all Nathan's hidden properties. The portfolio doubled my holdings overnight. The state investigation into his dealings is ongoing, but I'm clean, just a savvy investor buying distressed assets. Yesterday, I got an email from Joyce. She's moving out of state, following a job opportunity. Her last line read, I understand now what real strength looks like. It's not in putting others down. It's in rising above while they fall on their own. I didn't respond. This morning, I signed the papers to launch my own property investment firm. Douglas is coming on board as a partner. Christina's handling the renovation contracts. We're doing things right, transparent, legal, ethical. Nathan's name is now toxic in the industry. His empire is mine. His daughter's gone. His wife's free. And I did it all without breaking a single law. They say success is the best revenge. But here's what they don't tell you. True revenge isn't in watching your enemies fall. It's in becoming so powerful that their fall becomes just another business opportunity. My phone still buzzes with messages from unknown numbers. I don't read them anymore. There's nothing left to say. 3 years ago, I was just a guy trying to make a decent life for himself. Then, Nathan, my girlfriend's dad, decided to tear me down at dinner. You're a nobody, he said, and Joyce laughed along with him. It wasn't just the words, it was the way they looked at me, like I was something less. That night, something changed in me. I walked out, and I didn't look back. Instead of wallowing, I started planning. With Douglas's financial know-how and Christina's business sense, I mapped out a way to build my own future. I broke up with Joyce because she couldn't see past her dad's arrogance. I started investing, buying fixer-uppers and turning them into profit. I worked harder than I ever had, and slowly, I started to succeed. Then, the tables turned. Nathan's empire began to crumble. He came crawling back, wanting my help, my investment. Joyce tried to play on our past, but I saw through her. They hadn't changed, they just needed something from me. I refused. I wasn't interested in being their safety net. When Nathan's world finally collapsed, it wasn't satisfying. It was just sad. Lauren left him, Joyce was struggling, and Nathan was desperate. I even tried to help him get back on his feet, but he just tried to use me again. That's when I decided to take control. Lauren gave me the evidence I needed to expose Nathan's fraudulent dealings. I bought his properties, including the building Joyce was renting in, for pennies on the dollar. I gave him one last chance to walk away, and he took it. Joyce left town, finally understanding what it meant to be looked down on. I didn't want revenge, I wanted to build something real. And I did. I started my own firm, with Douglas and Christina by my side, doing things the right way. In the end, it wasn't about proving them wrong. It was about proving myself right. I didn't need their approval or their pity. I built my own success, and that's all that matters.